My name is Brian Cushing. I'm the program director here at Locust Grove, and today we are down in the small farm distillery getting ready for one of our whiskey mashing demonstrations. So when you come down here for a whiskey mashing demonstration, or occasionally brandy mashing, and we've got some other projects in the work too, you'll be seeing the way that the mash was prepared 200 years ago, completely authentically, all the right temperatures, ingredients, everything. We don't actually ferment and distill it here. When we can, we send that off-site to a licensed distillery to experiment with. So you'll be seeing the whole process up until we would get to the point where it would cool down and yeast would be added and alcohol would start to be produced. And so the first steps are very simple. First of all, everything has to be kept clean. And they knew this in the early 19th century. It's written in distilling manuals. The first step after that is to boil water in our boiler tub over here. And that's literally all there is to it. It's over 60 gallons, 70 gallons of water goes into that tub, and we build a fire in the firebox underneath, and it takes a while, but we just kind of push that fire until that water actually gets to a rolling boil. And that is where we start to combine grain with water to make that mash. And so what happens then is we start to cook the corn. And corn, this is what it looks like in its just kernel form. We grow this here at Locust Grove. This is Virginia gourd seed. It's a high starch historic corn, and so that gives the yeast, when it produces alcohol, a lot to eat. When it gets to the point that you'll be seeing us mashing, it's been milled like this, and it looks just like a rough version of what you might make cornbread out of. And I want to thank Brooks Grains. Actually, they've been kind enough to donate the grain that we'll be using in the mash. And so it's very simple from there. We will bucket the water, just in simple wooden buckets like this, from the boiler tub to the barrel, and it's ideal to at least have 3 people on this, because somebody needs to be pouring the boiling water, somebody else needs to be adding the corn, and somebody else needs to be mixing with a device like this. So this is a mashing rake, and this is what we use to continuously keep that grain mixed up. We don't want it clumping on the bottom, and the whole time we're doing this, we're going to be battling clumps. So once the mash is done fermenting, there'll be a crew of us. If we were doing this for real, we would bucket it out of that barrel and into the still. So this top part would be released at that point, so we could dump it down into the still. Most of the still is encased in this masonry here, and that's going to help us bring it up to heat, regulate the heat better than if it was just kind of sitting off by itself. So it'll all be bucketed into here. The still at Locust Grove was 66 gallons, ours is 70, so we could put about 50 gallons worth of mash into it. So if we ran a couple of runs of that, we would only get a couple of gallons of spirit out of that. So it would the onion that would then be placed back on, and we would seal up all of the joints. So right here, and then over on the arm here, we would seal either with like a wet rag or with some of that cornmeal batter, so it would cook on there real hard. We got it on here. We would then build a fire underneath of the still in this firebox, and it's really crucial to bring that heat up slowly, because if you notice when we were showing the different ingredients that go into the mash, there's a lot of solids. What we have at that point is basically a big barrel full of cornbread batter, and what we don't want is for those solids to burn on the bottom of the still. So we've got to bring it up very slowly, and then the alcohol will evaporate at a lower temperature than water. So the alcohol is going to be the first thing to start to rise and collect in this onion, and then it'll run down this arm, and there will be water flowing over a copper coil in this barrel, and that'll cool it down. So that will cause the alcohol to condense and come out of a pipe down there. So that is the early phase of production, of Kentucky whiskey production, that we were at here at Locust Grove. And this is the story also of African American distillers. The workforce at that point at Locust Grove were enslaved African Americans. And so that's who was making this whiskey. And that's part of the broader history that we're digging into, several people are digging into right now, of the history of African Americans in distilling and the development of American spirits. So thank you for coming along with us. hope you'll come out and see us one of these days when we got one of the demonstrations going on. We've got it set up very COVID safe. We're mostly open air out here, and you gather outside of the gate, so you're nowhere close to us, but you can still talk to us and see what's going on. And depending on when you come, you'll see something different, because it's not just for show. We're doing this all for real, in real time. We're actually going to be doing the work, and we are subject to the weather and our skill and our instruments and things like that. So it'll be different each time. It'll be different depending on what hour of the day you come. So thanks for coming along with us.